You see this? You see this? Well, I'm not trying to give you the finger, but you see this? Where is it? This, focus. This is how my week is going. Yeah, that's that's how the week is going. But other than that, today we have a strangler, and we're going to Philly. Ooh, here we go. Hi, I'm Holliday, and this is Chloroform and Chill, and we are going to Philly. But first, I want to talk about a few things that this case is about the Kensington Strangler in Philadelphia. Also, we will be touching on a point of individuals called the disappeared and what are the disappeared, right? The disappeared are women of color, Native American women, homeless women, women that are on drugs or just drug addicts. Well, people with substance abuse or sex workers, they go missing and not a lot of coverage or downright police work is going into finding them. People could be caught in their backlogs, and a little bit of this case talks about that. Let's go. Let's do what we do best and talk about crime. Where do we begin? I think we should begin with a little story. So you're walking home from having a good time out with your friends. You might be a little tipsy, and someone grabs you and drags you into an alleyway and does some unspeakable things to you. And unfortunately, they cease you from breathing. You would want for everybody in the world to find out who your killer is, correct? That is something we're going to touch on today. We're going to talk about the Kensington Strangler. His name is Antonio Rodriguez. He is a black man in Philadelphia, but he was raised by a Spanish speaking family. He's only like around this time, he's about like 21 years old. He was born in October. I think he's a Libra. Antonio doesn't have a lot of family history, but it does, like, a thing about him is that he turned to drugs, and that was kind of what got him into the situation he was in, and he does suffer from mental health as well. In 2010, Antonio was actually convicted for drug possession. Antonio was charged with drug crimes or whatever. After a while, he was given probation, and I think that's so crazy because right when he was given probation, right after that is when he started to do the crimes. Actually, not crimes, murders. Researching this case, I found out that Antonio was into rough fantasy play. So I think we know where it's going to go from just knowing that he's into that. Start off with Antonio's first murder. Elaine Goldberg, she was 21 years old. She was found November 3rd, 2010. Elaine was a nursing student at Gwyneth Mercy University. She was recently recovering from opioid addiction, and she was now known for spreading the gospel in her testimony throughout all the challenges that she has, faced and overcome. Elaine was celebrating 30 days of sobriety, and she went missing, unfortunately. They later would find Elaine's body in a parking lot on Ruth Street. Her bra and her shirt were around her neck. She was posed on all fours, and she was sodomized and strangled. After they do the exam on Elaine's body, they find out that she was sexually assaulted before and after death. That means that we got a necrophiliac on our hands too. This is when officers think that it's just like an isolated case and there's not going to be more people, because nobody ever thinks it's more people. But from the scene of where Elaine's body is, they actually do find DNA evidence from the perpetrator who attacked Elaine. They take his DNA and they enter it into CODIS, and no hits come back. What is CODIS though? I feel like maybe this is one of the first times I talked about CODIS. CODIS is I'm going to read it because I can't never remember anything. Memory is shit. CODIS is a combined DNA index system. It's a country database with perpetrators and convicted individuals' DNA. Yeah, and they put that in there and it didn't get any hits. And we're going to, and remember that because we're going to touch back on that not having a hit later, because it's going to be very important and very unfortunate when we come back to that. So around this time was like a no snitching policy in Philly with the people that lived there, and police, even though they knew that, they still combed the streets trying to figure out like if anybody saw anything, if anybody wanted to say anything, if anybody wanted to like, help find Elaine's murderer and rapist. Like let's get this guy off the street. He's obviously a problem, even though we know who we're talking about. We're talking about Antonio right now. Later on, we find out what Antonio was really on. So 10 days after Elaine's murder, another murder occurs. It's Nicole Piccacenti. I hope I said her name right. I'm sorry. She was 35 years old. She was from the Port Richmond section of Philly, and she was struggling with opioid addiction or drug substance abuse, and she was trying to get out of that lifestyle. She was working hard. They found Nicole's body in a shed not too far from the highway. So I'm assuming like 95. She was found in a desolate area, again in a shed not too far from where Elaine was murdered on Ruth Street. Nicole's body was also posed in a weird 4-4 position. You could tell that she was sodomized before and after death. She was sexually assaulted and she was strangled. I think what's a really sad thing is that Nicole's mother knew that something like this would happen one day. She wasn't that surprised when she got the call saying that this is something that has happened to her daughter. Even though she wasn't surprised, I think she was still devastated to hear that her daughter was killed in such a violent way. But just like from Elaine, DNA was collected and it was entered into CODIS, and they found out at that moment that the DNA matched, and they were starting to have suspicions that we might have a serial killer on our hands and we need to try to get ahead of the ball game. And you know what's crazy? They could have been ahead, and we're about to talk about that. They could have been ahead, and it didn't happen that way. They just oh, Philly was just so. We'll get in there. I'm going to stay on topic. We'll get into that. But the detective that was handling these two cases, his name is Detective Vega, and he was on the force for at least 35 years during this time of handling homicides. He, in his career, he's only seen like 3. Oh my, I just hate that my nail is broken. He's only seen 3 necrophiliacs in his whole 35 years. So when he saw that he had somebody that was into that again, he was like, oh, this is concerning. This is deeply concerning. From figuring out that this is potentially a serial killer and that we have a necrophiliac on our hands, a task force was actually created to find who the killer was. And I want to talk about something because I remember when this went around. I wasn't that old, right? 2010, 2020, 2020. How old was I? 14, 15? I remember around that time, it was rumors, not rumors, but people were saying that the Kensington Strangler was cleaning up the streets of Kensington. And what do you mean by that? Like, I know what you mean by that, but now I want the person that ever started that rumor to explain it. And this is what I meant by the disappeared. People don't care about these individuals that are just at a low point in their life or not at a low point in their life if they're Native American or they're African American women or women of color. People don't care to really think like, oh, this is somebody's daughter, this is somebody's mother. But also, I don't feel like that we should have to even talk about it being somebody's mom or not, or somebody's daughter or sister. Like, this is an individual, this is a human being that we should care about. I understand that right now at this point we have 2 women that were murdered, and that one was recovering from drugs and one was on substance, like, on drugs as well. But they both matter. They're not just individuals that we shouldn't care about. Okay, just like if you were to die, you would want the same amount of care you want for you and your body and your spirit to be rested. You should want the same care for them. Okay, just because they were at their lowest at this one point or recovering from their lowest does not mean that they deserve to die, and it counts as the streets being cleaned up. This man was strangling and sodomizing and raping women and just leaving them in the cold with nothing on their body. Like, I'm sorry, it just pisses me off because there's so many cases of Black women that aren't found. There are so many cases of Native American women that aren't found. There are just so many cases in the United States, and they're not getting as much coverage as certain other people would get. And y'all know who I'm talking about. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That's my rant right now. Because, like, researching this case, it made me just so upset that it took a while for them to catch him, and it didn't have to. And on top of that, there was a woman that actually survived the attack from him. She was walking one day and he grabbed her, brought her into an alleyway, sexually assaulted her, strangled her. And she was lucky because she just passed. She passed out and acted like she was dead. And then he said his name to her which was Anthony, even though we're going to know him as Antonio. Said Anthony, and then he left her there. And then she later found out that they were doing a task force to find out who did this. And that's when she came forward and she gave her story about everything that was happening. She was like, she was dragged into an alley not too far from where they found Nicole's body. So he's working in like a 10-mile radius. You get what I'm saying? He's like right there in the Kensington area going after women. And you know what? We're so lucky because she was able to even go to a sketch artist and get a sketch. And I know about the science about like sketch artists, not science, but like people have a little bit of an uproar because sketch artists aren't really, they're not that they're not good. Some sketches are good, some sketches are bad. Everybody remembers differently. They say that your memory is the one thing that can always be changed, and you don't even mean to do it like that. It's just something that happens in your brain. On December 15th, a woman named Casey Mahoney, 27 years old, her body was found. She lived in the Port Richmond area and she was struggling with substance abuse, but she was trying to get better. A lot of people said that she was such a sweet girl and nice to everyone around her. She had dreams of going back to college and getting her life back on track. Her body was found near a railroad. She was posed like the other victims. She was strangled, sodomized, alone in the cold. She was sexually assaulted before and after death. This time, though, the killer, the awful human being, left a condom nearby with his DNA in it. When I read this, I realized like, oh, he was starting to get hip. He was starting to like cover up his tracks a little bit, but then left the condom behind, and I felt like he was an idiot, but it was great. It was great because then it matches DNA to Nicole and Elaine, and they realized like, yes, we now confirm that we have a serial killer on our hands, a necrophiliac and a violent rapist. Let's talk about what is a serial killer, right? I want to read it all from my notes because I get tongue tied, but I think it's just better if we read it this way. What classifies a serial killer? A person who murders 3 or more people in a period over a month with a cooling down period between murders. What that means is that, like, yeah, if he was to kill somebody on December 10th and then he doesn't kill somebody until December 15th, that 5 days was his cooling down period, and that's when he's going to start getting back to business. And it might escalate from there. Most serial killers are often killing for a psychological reason or for pleasure. And this serial rapist, was killing for pleasure. Once they realized they had a serial killer on their hands, they actually took the DNA from Casey Mahoney's murder and they put it back in the CODIS again. And this time, there was a hit. But first, let's talk about how before this happened, they were able to get some CCTV footage of suspect that could be. Come to find out, the sketch that was done on him was a match, and they could see from the CCTV footage, they could see that he looked just like the sketch, basically. And then that's when on January 16th, remember, I said they got a hit. They got a hit in CODIS, and the hit was for 21-year-old Antonio Rodriguez. He was arrested for drugs, and his DNA came back linking him to all 3 murders. Police found Antonio homeless in an abandoned building. People were very surprised that Antonio was the killer because they thought that he would look like a monster. And I think that's an odd thing for police to say because monsters look like, not monsters, killers look like everyday people. And I feel as though we should try to get away from calling these people monsters only because they don't look like them. They could be Prince Charming. They're regular individuals at this point. Because when I think of a monster, I think of something that looks very grotesque and scary. But if you look at his pictures, he don't look that scary. I mean, at night, he does look a little scary, I ain't gonna lie. When Antonio was arrested, he actually admitted to the murders immediately. It didn't take a lot of like interrogation or to coerce him, because you know they damn with coercing people into confessions. But it didn't take a lot. He came in and was like, yeah, I did it. And he said that he would ask these women for services, and it just escalated from there. He said he would start, having sex with them, having intercourse, and it would lead to him choking and beating them. Even after they died, he understood they were dead, but he still wanted to play and have fun and keep having sex with them. There's actually a little controversy with the Kensington Strangler case because come to find out, Antonio could have been caught. Yeah, his DNA was on backlog. They have 5,000 cases of backlog DNA that was not up and put into CODIS or analyzed. He could have been caught. He could have been caught before Casey Mahoney died. Yeah, isn't that crazy? He could have been taken care of. He could have been off the streets. A woman didn't have to die. A woman didn't have to be strangled. A woman, like, what can I say? Could you imagine being like in heaven and then you find out like, oh, y'all could have caught him before I'm up here? Wow, kind of sick, kind of crazy. So that now leads us to Antonio's trial and his sentencing. Antonio waived his right to a jury trial. He decided that, yeah, I did it and I don't think we need to go to trial about it. So Antonio was charged with 3 counts of first degree murder, 3 counts of abuse of a corpse, and 3 counts of rape. Oh, and 3 counts of involuntary sexual deviant. Antonio was held without bond. Not really too shocked because I think since he was homeless, they didn't know if they could find him again. And also, I don't think somebody that is, I don't know, a serial killer should be out on bond anyway. I don't even understand why. I get it. It's like people rights and due process that you have to say if they're going to get bond or not. But it's like, come on, y'all. Prosecutors did not seek the death penalty, which I am shocked at, but they said it's due to Antonio. I can't never say his name right. Antonio having a history of mental illness. Didn't know. I mean, yeah, I can see that. I personally believe, like, sorry, sidebar. I personally believe if you can do or take a life, that is mental illness, and I feel like we need to like handle that in a certain way because there are people that eat people, there are people that like chop people up, and I feel like that's a certain type of mental illness in the brain that's going on. But I guess it's the point of like seeing if somebody is sane or not, and that's what really gets them when it comes down to it. But you tell me we're not going to kill him because he has mental illness. I'm pretty sure there are other people that have like anybody I think that kills somebody in a gruesome way, such as strangulation, because I feel like strangulation is very a personal thing to do. You feel the life slip out of your hands. You don't think that that should be like the death penalty? I know I'm for it, which is crazy. I know that's a very controversial thing for people to say. I'm for it in certain situations if you can prove that this person really did the crime. But you're saying because of his mental health that we're not going to hang this man at the gallows, even though today it would be lethal injection. But I'm pretty sure y'all get what I'm saying. What I'm putting down. Okay, like is he? Are we saying that he was not like suitable even for trial then? Because then that's a whole other different can of worms open up. Antonio was found guilty and he was given 3 consecutive life sentences. And he is now to this day at the state correctional institution in Rockville. Keep him there. Lock him up. Throw away the key. Ugh. I would like to end this on a few words that the judge had to say to the families of Elaine Goldberg, Casey Mahoney, and Nicole Picasanti. The judge said, Ms. Goldberg, your life is important. Ms. Picasanti, your life is important. Miss Mahoney, your life is important. And that's how I would like to end today's case. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm pretty sure you understand where I stand on these Philly cases. I do want to try to sprinkle in more of them, bring some awareness to crime that's happening in Philly. So please stay safe, and I'll see you guys later.